Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast. Using my sportscasting background, I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players to gain more insight on what makes this team go. As the Detroit Lions enter a new gritty era, we'll look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we take a quick look at the Lions after 4 weeks of football. We previewed the Detroit Lions Week 5 matchup against the Carolina Panthers as well. What do we know about Carolina? What are we expecting from each team? And what do we view as vitals for success? Let's get to it, Lions fans.
This is Corey Schlesinger, and you are listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
I'm joined today by Coach Jerry Angers, named Michigan High School Coach of the Year, as well as Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He's also mentored numerous players at the college level and some all the way to the NFL. As usual, good to have you here, Coach.
Glad to be here, Matt.
Now, as we get to it, just a reminder to the listeners, please hit the subscribe or like button. It is helping us build momentum. Well, before we get into the Carolina matchup, let's talk about where we are. Coach, we are at what used to be the quarter point of the season, but now we're like 4/17 because they added one extra game, but it's kind of the same thing. We've got about a quarter of the season in, so let's take a little stock and see where the Lions sit after 4 games. They have a 3-1 record that I don't think would have shocked many people, but was by no means a guarantee this offseason. But let's look at some more interesting stats, so kind of tell the story of the record. The Lions are 8th in total yards for offense and 8th for total points scored at 26.5. And I think the way we saw that offense going with Ben Johnson at the end of the season, those would not shock us either. Jared Goff is currently 7th with over 1,000 yards passing. Amon-Ra St. Brown is 10th in catches and in yards. Those things wouldn't shock you. Sam Laporta might surprise you a little bit. He's 18th in the league in catches with only 2 tight ends above him. That's Evan Ingram and TJ Hawkinson. But they don't have as many yards as Sam. And reminder, Sam is a rookie tight end. So
yes, he is.
Those things right there have to get you super excited. Oh, and the Lions are 10th in rushing yards. And again, we're not shocked by the offense. Now, turning over to the defensive side, this is the area that might actually surprise some people. The Lions rank 4th in yards allowed in the NFL in defense. They're 13th in points allowed. And Coach, can you guess where they rank as far as rushing defense in the NFL is right now?
Kind of scary, but I believe in number 1.
They are number 1 with 243 yards allowed. Passing defense is 18th in the NFL. That's a long way from the bottom 4.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you think about the turnaround they've made. And again, you know, we can go back to last year, those last 10 games and what they've done with this year, you know, and I think you tie all those in and then you start looking at the, you know, the PFF rankings or whatever on the players. And, you know, those guys, we got so many integral parts that are part of this that are highly ranked at their position at what they do. And now Glenn, you know, AG's coming up with some great schemes. And now these guys are all starting to tie in. And let's talk about their age. Again, they're young pups, man. They're pups. I hate to say it, but they're young pups in a NFL league with playbooks that are as big as Lake Michigan, and they are picking these things up. And that's the thing that I love to see, you know, week in and week out, who steps up and week in and week out. And we've done that with injuries in the secondary. So God bless AG and the staff and the players.
Well, that's exactly it. They've done well even with those injuries. And I said it after that last game. These are the Detroit Lions that everyone fell in love with last year. And they are now looking like that team that everybody remembered in Lambeau last year, in Lambeau this year. And so it's not just that the Lions have won, but it's where they've won and how they've won. They won in Arrowhead. They won in Lambeau. They've got 3 of their tougher games out of the way. Nothing's perfect, and they're going to have some tough matchups coming up. But a 3-1 start is a significantly better start than that 1-6 last year. And not only that, the Lions are looking like the kings of the NFC North.
No, yeah, and I totally agree. I mean, you look at, you know, you watch Green Bay's, you know, I still think they're a pretty good football team. Minnesota's scary, and the Bears are the Bears right now. So, I mean, we have to look at that, and I think that's something. We talked about that game last week. It's a league game, and it's on the road, and it's one of the toughest places to play in. And again, you go to those two of the victories that we've had, they've been on the road at two of the toughest places to play in. So, I mean, those are huge. And again, you go back to that, and it comes up to, look at Kaminsky. Kaminsky graded 84.4 last week. Nobody talks about Kaminsky. He had 7 quarterback pressures at 29 reps and a sack.
Amazing.
Right? It is. I mean, and you can't. I mean, and they asked Campbell about it in the press conference. What about Kaminsky? And he said, "Hey, he's a lunch pail guy, man. He's got his lunch pail. He's going to put his hard hat on. He's going to come to work every day." And I've told you this, and I haven't changed it. He's one of my favorite players on defense. I watch him, and when he makes a play like he did last week, I'm up screaming. Division II, Kaminsky. I just love the guy, and those are the things that are making this defense click on all cylinders right now.
And it is. And even though I said they're the kings of the NFC North, I know there's a lot of football left to be played. That being said, the Lions seem to be playing at a different level than the rest of their division. Now, I agree, Minnesota could still be scary. You get rid of a few turnovers here and there, they have a much different record. And we're not going to see them till later in the season. So there's a lot of football. That being said, Lions fans could not have asked for a much better start of the season. And I think if you said this to everybody back in May or June, they would have taken this in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think that's the one thing. And we go back to what you said at the beginning. Quarter of the season, +1, we're 3-1. And again, I hear Campbell talk about, and the guys talk about, we got to go to 1-0 every week. But these are all integral parts. They've already talked about the quarters. They talk about what are we going to do in the first quarter? What are we going to do in the second quarter of the season? What are we doing in the third? What are we doing in the fourth? 1/3, 1/4 of the quarters are gone, and we're positive. So now they changed their whole mindset on, okay, we're starting our second quarter. When he's emphasizing that in his meetings, that's what they're emphasizing in their team meetings. I mean, when he's doing it in his press conferences, and those are the things that you kind of level. First league win on the road. Those are all goals that they just keep checking off. And are they satisfied? No, I don't believe so. And we know by listening to what they're talking about. So it's a positive. It's a positive thing, which is what's happening in that locker room, what's happening on that practice field, what's happening in the training room, what's happening in the staff meetings. So it's just great to see.
It is. It's for people like us that like to look at the bigger pictures and kind of, talk about that. And I understand the coaching staff has them focused at one game at a time mentality, the quarter of a season at a time. And so let's move to that next game. The Carolina Panthers are coming into town. And how is Carolina different from last year? Let me throw a bunch of information out here, Coach. Okay. Carolina was 7-10 last year. They were not great, but they weren't horrible. And they did this while trading away Christian McCaffrey mid-year. They fired their head coach, Matt Rule, during the season. Yet Carolina still managed to beat the Lions, and they also beat Seattle in the second half of the season. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a lot different about Carolina this year, starting right at the quarterback position. Sam Darnold, who was the quarterback last year when the Lions faced him, he's gone. Baker Mayfield was on the team at one point last year. He was gone. I think he was gone before we played him as well, though. I believe the rest of the bunch is probably gone as well. They used the number 1 overall pick on quarterback Bryce Young. They signed Andy Dalton as the backup quarterback. They traded away DJ Moore, their top wide receiver, as part of that thing to get Bryce Young. So in the second round, they drafted Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver. Free agency, they added Miles Sanders, Adam Thielen, DJ Shark, and tight end Hayden Hurst from the Bengals. On defense, they brought in a couple defensive tackles. Deshaun Williams from Denver, Shai Tuttle from the Saints, to help them switch to a 3-4 defensive scheme. Oh, and by the way, they also brought in safety Von Bell, who had 4 interceptions last year. Oh, by the way, they brought in a new coaching staff. Frank Reich is now there, coming over from Indiana. And of course, you got Deuce Staley in that room right there. He's one of the coaches, and he's a former Lions coach. And so we know all about him as well. So we're going to get into their record and their season that they're having right now in a moment. But, Coach, that is a mountain of moves for an organization in just one offseason. What do you make of all that?
Well, I totally agree. I mean, they're trying to develop a program now, or a team now with all these additions that they went. They went off their 7-10 record last year. They went off of Frank Reich, but he's got to get his bodies, his people in there. You look at, we talk about, we'll talk about how they freaking throttled us last year with 320 yards of rushing. And so those are all things, it's tough. And that's probably what's happening with some of the problems they're having in their games, whether it's a turnover here, whether it's a missed assignment there, a lot of new bodies with a new playbook. And it's not like there's old veterans in there helping the young guys with this playbook. They've all been handed this playbook, offense, defense, special teams, because of, the new regime and their head coaches. So that makes a big difference. And that could be one of the reasons that they are not clicking like they feel they should be. And they are doing some things well. And so I think that's something we may have caught them at a great time early in the season, the second quarter, if you want to call it that. And we'll see how that shakes out.
Oh, I completely agree with you on that one, because you've got all this talent, but the talent's got to gel and come together, and getting them earlier in the season is probably going to be much more beneficial than seeing them later. I mean, I didn't expect them to be 0-4 coming into the season. They added a lot of quality players in the offseason. I don't think anyone expected that, but they are winless. They had a lead on Minnesota, but they couldn't hold it. Again, I think Minnesota could still be a dangerous team that's being overlooked with a losing record right now. But let's look at Carolina's rank in offense and defense. They ranked 25th in total offense for yards and 24th in points scored, averaging 16.8. Bryce Young and Andy Dalton have both seen action. If you combine their numbers, they're right around the Justin Fields category for yards thrown, around 18th in the NFL with 860 yards. When it comes to defense, the Panthers are better, though. They're 14th in yards allowed, 26th in points allowed. Their rushing defense is 27th, which isn't that great, but their pass defense is actually pretty good. It's ranking number 6. Now, I don't know if that is a full complement to their entire secondary, or if part of that is due to some teams running more and using more game clock. But I'd also point out, even though they're 0-4, they haven't been blown out yet. So I think this Panthers team that's winless is still a team you got to take seriously, because sometimes those winless teams are the most dangerous teams to play.
Oh, I totally agree. And here's some of the things that I was thinking about. Bryce Young is a winner. Okay. He doesn't know how to lose. And yeah, I was reading a thing about how he was sitting at his locker after basically all the team left, still in his uniform on Sunday after their loss. And, basically blaming himself, saying, I did this. I'm losing games. I'm not winning games. I'm not used to this. And he's going to be one of those guys that, you have to worry. He could get on fire, and just light the sky up. I mean, they got the intangibles, and then, you want to talk about that. DJ Shark, he knows us. Okay. He knows our defense concept. That running back coach knows our, defense concept. And so those are things that they're going to try to exploit in that situation. And, we're going to have to watch out for it. I mean, and so again, yeah, they're 0-4, 0-4 teams are hungry, 0-4. And a couple other things that I was thinking about too, Matt, was, we have a 10-day window to get ready for them. We also had a 10-day window earlier in the year to get ready for somebody. Within that 10-day window that we're getting ready for that other team, it was a payback game because they beat us the year before.
Yeah.
Okay. This game is another 10-day window to get ready, and it's another payback team that's rushed for 320 yards against us. So and they're 0-4. This stuff is all, it's funny. I mean, as a coach, that Coach Campbell is bringing this stuff up. He's bringing up that Seattle loss, and he's bringing up, what Young's all about, what Shark's all about. And Frank Reich's a pretty damn good coach. And now they're, 4 weeks under their belt in this playbook. Hopefully they don't break it out in week 5.
Well, and you pointed out those similarities. Seahawks were winless when they played us as well.
Yep. So,
I mean, it was only week 2, but yes, and Seattle's caught fire since then. And so there's not going to be anything that Dan Campbell doesn't have at his disposal to motivate his players. I think if you look at what to expect out of the Lions, let's start right with Dan Campbell. I think he's going to remind his players about last year. I mean, this game is one of those games that kept the Lions out of the playoffs. Full stop. I mean, Lions fans, listeners, you might need to plug your ears for just a minute. I don't blame you if you do, but I got to throw a few stats out there. Coach, you already mentioned one of them. But the Lions lost that game 37-23, but it never really felt that close, right? The big stat was the amount of yards they gave up on the ground. 320 yards rushing on the ground. Donta Foreman had 165 yards rushing. Chuba Hubbard had 125 yards rushing. Sam Darnold threw for 250 yards and a touchdown. Now, Goff threw well, 355 yards, but the Lions ran for only 45 yards in that game. Swift and Williams carried the ball 11 times total for 23 yards. The Panthers had the time of possession, which is what really limited the Lions' ability, 35 minutes to 25 minutes. And that made the Lions one-dimensional. And, Coach, that game was just so weird. There were so many weird things about it, from the coldest day ever in Carolina to the field to the ugliness to the worst game the Lions played the second half of the season. I still don't know what really went wrong, but Coach Campbell's got a lot to talk about with that.
Oh, he does. And I was again, his press conference the other night. First thing he said was, that game is on me. And this is the thing about this team. All these guys take and they look in the mirror and they blame themselves. They're not pointing fingers because I know there's 3 pointing back. And he said, that game was on me because I did not have our team ready. I did not have our team ready. I heard that quote and I love him saying that. And that's, and then he came out with that quote about, if we're the 100 right now, you won't have far to find us. I'm on your front porch. We're going to be on the front porch this week. And you can see him, even his press conferences. He's geared up and jacked up for this game. It just seems the one the other day, he was so fidgety and stuff. I'm looking at him going, he doesn't want to even do this press conference. He wants to get back to work because this game is bugging him. And I'm hoping it's gonna rub off on all the guys, which I think it will.
Well, I think it already is, because Jared Goff spoke about it. He talked about last year's game and the upcoming matchup as well.
Sure, yeah. I think, it's a game that we kind of needed last year, and they kind of, kicked ass in some ways at their place. And, obviously different coach, different players, but a lot of those guys are still there. And, we'd like to, get our chance back now. And I know they're going to come with it. They need a win, and so do we. So it's going to be a good battle. I think this is going to be one of the best defenses we'll play all year, so it'll be a challenge for us.
Coach, we mentioned it earlier, but Goff right there gave some credit and recognition to that Panther defense.
Oh, I think so too. And I mean, each one of the guys are going to step up. The other thing too, the intangible for this is, even though it's a payback game, even though it's a 10-week, even though it's the first game of the second quarter, even though they want to go 1-0, they want to take care of business because they got pounded by them last year. They're at home, but we have a lot of bodies coming back right now, it sounds like. And long as we stay healthy this week, I'm not even going to talk about it. Let's just leave that alone because I don't want to jinx into that. But there's a lot of guys that are going to be stepping on the field for the first time or coming back from an injury this week, long as they don't have any setbacks, and they're going to be hungry too. Knock on wood. Hopefully they're coming together for us.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And a lot of the two areas those are mostly focused on are the offensive line and the defensive secondary. And so as far as players getting healthy, we also talked about how much improved the defense is playing right now. And I'm expecting the Lions to lean on that. And I think they're going to want to make Carolina pass the ball to beat them. I think they're going to gear up to stop that run, to try and make them one-dimensional and try and make the quarterback beat them.
Oh, I think you're right on that. I was thinking about that. Are we going to go just to a 4-man pass rush this week? We are leading the league in pressures. And I think we're third or fourth in sacks. Are we going to go to a 4-man, or are we going to turn up the heat a little bit on the rookie and make him feel uncomfortable? Because Bryce Young's, when he's comfortable, he's scary. He did it in the college. We watched him and he had the, one of the best offensive lines, of course, in college. And the NFL is a lot different. But I think those are things that it'll be interesting to see how we pressure him to get him uncomfortable, to get him back in that mindset. Oh my God, we're going to lose again.
that pass rush, trying to put the pressure on him. And it will be real interesting to see what happens with that.
For sure.
So let's look at another major storyline or two coming out of this game. I think the first one is, we talked about this last week on our recap episode from the Good News Friday thing, which is Jamison Williams is coming back. And wide receiver coach Antoine Randall L. talked a little bit about his return and said they're not shying anything away from the pressure.
If we're not putting pressure on them, if it's not pressure, then it's like, this is a cakewalk. We want some of that pressure, and it's good pressure. From that standpoint, but we know our offense and putting him back in the mix, how much further we can go. And again, I always make sure everybody understand the humbleness part of it. Like, it's not that he's the fix-all, be-all from that standpoint, but he brings a different element that, us and many other teams don't have, just in terms of his speed and the way he runs down the field. So it certainly translate, over to the game and is certainly going to help us. And again, it's just back to how do we, how quick can we get them ready to be able to get on the field.
Coach, I really liked how he put that. Jamison Williams is not everything to this offense, but he can be a part of it, and a very unique part at that, one that most teams don't have.
Yeah. And I go back, we the fantasy football people and everybody else are out there. Oh my God, I'm playing JMO. I have him. He's on my fantasy team. Am I going to play him this week? I'm not going to play him this week. Is he going to, could he shine this week? Sure. Again, it's about them winning, and what part can he help them win? You look at Gibbs last week. You look at Gibbs the week before. You look at Monty this week. Is Monty going to carry the ball? Was it 32 times? And Dan, Dan said that in his press conference too, that I watched the other day, was, we have all these guys, all these pieces, and each time somebody's always going to somebody's hopefully is going to step up and shine and have the best game of his life. It's not going to be the same people all the time. He even said it. It's not on our best interest to play him 60 plays. It's not our best interest to play Mosley in our 60 plays. It's not, it's not whether it's not in our best interest as a team or in the player's best interest. And you have to look at all those. And that's what the Lions are doing. You watch week in and week out, who's going to step up this week? We got so many. I think we got a ton of weapons.
We absolutely do, and you're not the only one that thinks that, actually. Jamison Williams was asked about what he saw with this 3-1 Lions team while he was away.
I feel like we converting and we executing. Play get called, your number get called. We had multiple receivers in the game, but when play get called, if it's a block or it's a catch or it's a third down conversion, fourth down conversion, your number get called, you just make that play. So that's what I've been seeing a lot of. I've been seeing a lot of that on both sides of the ball, though, like making plays. There's been a lot of plays made,
So that's exactly it, Coach. You've got a different person stepping up all the time, stepping up when their number's called, doing their job. You talk about this all the time. Do your job, and then when your number's called, you do it. And if the ball's going to you, great. If you're blocking, great. And so it's awesome hearing Jamison Williams say that. He also said he's ready to go, and he thinks he's ready to play now. Now, we're going to have to wait and see what the coaches think about this. You talked about it as well. Getting Mosley, getting him. They're not going to get 60 reps this week. It sounds like they're going to work both of them back into some sort of a rotation. How do you think this is going to play out, Coach?
Well, I think they're going to use him in certain instances. I think they're going to you take Williams, you look at him last year, first game he played in last year. What did we do? What did he score?
A touchdown.
45-yard touchdown, was it? Whatever. I think they're going to use that. They're going to put him on the field. They might put him on the field as a decoy. I would. Those are things that people are going to be pointing out. Williams on the field, he's running a go route, or Williams on the field, he's running a reverse. Hiding them, moving them around and stuff like that. So I think that's what you're going to do. Jacobs is playing great at corner. Mosley's going to help him, going to make us that much deeper. Both those guys are back. Then all of a sudden, we might be able to keep Branch at safety some more and play one of those guys at the nickel or the slot corner. Who knows? Those are things that I see the Lions doing. They're taking all these pieces and they're putting this puzzle together. And again, we talked about it. Is it about this week? Sure, it's about this week. But when is it really about? It's about week 18. And that's what, they're going to have to develop that down. Look at what happened last week when Branch went down. Because people stepped in. Harrison, he still stepped in and did a decent job, because they went after him. And so those are things that those integral parts, those little pieces of that puzzle, as they continue to come together, they're just gonna keeping that puzzle coming together till they have full puzzle.
I love that analogy. Yeah, they're putting the puzzle together, and you even said it. It's his first game back, likely. We don't know for sure, but we're expecting that. And you're going to work the guy back in. And you said, so what should people expect? Well, you already said it. He'll be in there a bit. He'll be in there for some design plays. You said he could be in there as a decoy, or maybe he's not a decoy and people think he is. So I think it's great, and you're going to work him in. I do think this is a little different from when he came in last year for a couple of reasons. One, he's got some more experience now. He had a little bit more of an offseason compared to none. The Lions also could use a little more help at wide receiver right now. DJ Shark isn't here to stretch the field. I mean, he's going to be here at Ford Field this week, but that's for the other cats. So the Lions also last year did not have a margin for error. I mean, they had to go with the guys who had been building chemistry with Goff throughout the season. And it's early in the season, so J-Mo can get in, and the need for him is more this year. The wide receiving core is doing well, but they need that deep threat, and this is going to help open the field up for St. Brown and Laporta to, believe it or not, potentially do even more. But also, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, David Montgomery has been amazing, but he's had to get a ton of those yards after contact. And I did a little deep dive. Can you guess which running back in the NFL has the most broken tackles through 4 games, according to Fantasy Pros?
I think it's Montgomery, and he missed a game, didn't he?
Correctamundo on both accounts, sir. Yes. And he ranks 12th in rushing currently. And like you said, he missed a game and a quarter. Because I still think that Seattle game turns out different if David Montgomery does not get knocked out of it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I totally agree. Again, that's Brad Johnson's playbook just shrunk down because of that. And it's not, I'm not downgrading Gibbs because he's a stud, but they had certain packages, certain things they're going to do. How many times was Gibbs and Monty on the field last Sunday? I wish I'd have knew that stat.
That would have been a good one to look up.
Because there's a ton of times Monty's running the ball and you see Gibbs was running a motion, or he's running a pass, or he's running this. And so those are just things that, again, you have to identify. Why is Gibbs on the field now? Oh my God, why is J-Mo on the field now? Oh my God, St. Brown, J-Mo, and Laporta and Gibbs are all lined up together. Oh my, I mean, these are things that, again, make a huge difference. And if you get all that with J-Mo out there and all that extra speed and athleticism out there, that just opens up for those inside runs by Monty. And then if we have our offensive line together for the first time in how long, all 5 starters, that's going to be fun, and I think that's, but again, they continue to do what they need to do to win football games.
Well, you said this is going to be fun. Well, the Lions are back after that trip across the lake. So what do you think we're going to expect from Ford Field? I mean, I'm hoping this crowd is just like the crowd from Seattle and Atlanta.
I think they're gonna rise to the occasion again. I think Campbell keep continue to challenge them to be the best crowd in the NFL, and I think they're going to continue to do that. We're 3-1, man. The Detroit fans are excited.
Yes, they are.
We're all excited, and being 3-1, coming home, playing against a team that beat us last year, some guys back on the field that haven't been out on the field. I mean, there's just so much. We're on the front porch, as Dan Campbell would say. Kaminsky's got a hard hat and a lunchbox. I mean, those are just things that ignite the Detroit fans. And I talked to David Lutz. I talked to him a ton last week because he's, played for the Lions for 4 years and played with Lomas and those guys like that. And, Bowling Green played Georgia Tech last week. So I was talking to him. He texts me every week. I mean, he's so excited for the Lions. And and I'm going to tell you this play, and I hope this gets back to Dan Campbell. David Lutz told me that, in his words, that man could make me do another full series because he said, he motivates me. Now, Lucy's, he played Lomas and those guys. He's a big old Southern boy, but I just laugh when he said that because he just says Dan can't. He just from seeing it from the outside, he realizes what that guy is doing for the Detroit Lions football program.
I think it's awesome hearing a former player talk about the Lions like that and sharing some of those insights and talking about how they would react if Coach Campbell was coaching them right now. And so I agree with you. I think the Lions have a home field advantage for the rest of the season. It's going to be fun to watch. So now let's turn to prediction time. Now, Coach, you can make any prediction you want. Doesn't have to be the score, doesn't have to be who wins, just what predictions do you have out for this game? I've got a couple of my own. Did you want to go first or you want me to?
I think that a couple things. I think J-Mo will make a splash. I definitely believe, and I usually don't say this as from a coaching standpoint, they will not rush for 320 yards against us this year. So I think the parts that are coming back are going to make us that much better. And I foresee us having a pretty good football game on both sides of the ball as well as special teams. And I don't think Monty is going to carry the ball 32 times this week.
Yeah, that was quite a few carries last week. I hear you on that one. Maybe a little bit more balanced attack of some sort. Well, on the last show, I made my prediction, and I actually got called out by a listener for not being bolder. I got to tell you, the reason I wasn't bolder in my prediction is because there were a lot of variables that caused uncertainty, and I want to make predictions that I believe in and I got a good feeling on. Because, we all know the guy who makes 7 different predictions before the game and then brags about the 1 or 2 they got right, but don't talk about the 5 they got wrong. I don't want to fall into that category. And I'm still going to get things wrong, even if I only make 1 or 2 predictions. All right. But I also got to hand it to that listener. He predicted a 31-17 Lions victory. And, you tack on a field goal to each of those scores. He was right on. So that's pretty awesome. So I give him a lot of props for that. And I hope he leaves another prediction in the comment section below. So that last game, I had it in the should win category and I was right. And this week, I've got the Lions in the should win category. And I'm going to even say I think the Lions are going to win by 2 scores. I feel that good about the way the Lions are playing. And I think they're catching Carolina at a good time. Now, another thing I think is everyone's excited about J-Mo coming back. And you might see something fun his way. But I think the Lions are going to try and duplicate what they did on the ground last week. And I think they're going to try and rush for 200 yards again on the ground. That's
a great prediction, and again, that's going to open up our pass game and it's going to get those offensive linemen that are, he can't move so well to the left or to the right because of toes and ankles. And let's lean on some people and run for some first downs and burn that clock up. I like what you said about that, trying to run for 200 yards.
Awesome, Coach. Well, it's time to wrap it up. Are there any final thoughts you have before we get out of here?
Oh, just looking forward to it again, trying to get to those Sundays, but we don't want to wish too many of these beautiful days away.
That we don't. Pretty amazing weather here in Michigan right now. Lots of things to be excited for. Looking forward to the Lions this weekend. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. And folks, thank you for tuning in. You can find all the episodes at notthesameoldlions.com. If you're listening on YouTube, please hit that like button. And while you're at it, tell your friends about the show and please subscribe regardless of your listening platform. Until next time, stay gritty, my friends.